Thank you so much for being here with us today. We are so excited to be here in person and to see all of your beautiful faces. We know that it has been a long time, and we do actually have some people on Zoom as well. So we appreciate seeing you here this morning, and we are so thankful that you're here. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. With our Eastside business briefing, Sage is really excited to have this panel here today. That was our last in-person Eastside business briefing, was when we had it in 2019. So very happy to have this group here with the addition of Metro Health. So with that, we would like to just introduce you to this event. Again, we have had this for several years. We have this as a way and a means to get information out to the community, to have our community leaders talk about what's happening on the East Side and to ensure that the community is engaged. But there is no doubt that COVID-19 had a really big impact on our community. So we are going to talk a little bit about safe work. We're going to talk about what's going on here on the East Side, and then we're going to go to our panelists. We have questions that were submitted that were already in advance. However, if you do have a question, please raise your hand, and a staff member will give you an index card, and you can bring that over so you do have a question for the panelists. So with that, I would like to bring up Reverend Dr. William Knight. He is going to give us the invocation for this morning. I know most of you have already eaten, but that is okay. We can all still take the blessing this morning.
Good morning. The three people said good morning back. Will you please join me in our presence? Let us enter into a time of prayer and silence. Each of us according to our individual beliefs, whatever ways are meaningful. Dear God, our understanding, as we gather together this year, our needs and our hopes for the greater safety of our neighborhoods, we reflect on our call to be of service. We're called to reach out to those families that deserve our best efforts. We continue to open our hearts to share our support with all our community. We recognize and we acknowledge safety is our collective responsibility. With hearts of gratitude, we offer thanks for this meal, for the blessings of fellowship, friendship, family, and community. May it bestow our service. Amen. Amen. Amen.
Thank you very much. And before we get started, we would really like to honor and recognize this. So we do have our top sponsor, Bexar, your friend Bexar, here to talk to you a little bit about their
Well, good morning to everyone. Can I hear a good morning? Good morning. Good morning. Truly, you all, we are blessed to have them. Are we not? God gave us an invitation. We have to do it. I want to just be able to also take one quick moment to really thank Sage. Sage is always on top. Always got their finger on the pulse, the heartbeat of this community, and oftentimes don't get a chance to say thank you for being here. Thank you, Tuesday. Thank you, Sage. Certainly, Sage, when I say the pulse, has their finger on the pulse of our community. And one of the topics you see this morning is about crime. I just want you all to know that West Carolina City Police Department will be on a public safety summit on August 14th. Now, we have a flyer that will be here at the front doors. Or you can certainly ask our table right here. One of the flyers about is neighborhood based. You all know that for businesses, crime costs businesses billions of dollars every year. And when that happens in the neighborhood, our business community responds. They have to raise their prices to make up for the theft. And in a worst case scenario, many of them choose to leave our community. And that's why we are so focused on being able to connect on our name. We have been very, very blessed to actually have received approximately $2.5 million to help address crime, particularly on the East Side of Bexar. We are doing this, and we have actually had a great response so far over the last 2 years, and that our crime rate has already dropped in this area by over 6.7%. So again, we want to be able to get should celebrate. So again, save your neighbors, save your son, so that we can actually, by neighborhood, become safer. Thank you all.
So lots of people go to your website. Great. We're excited about this. We'd also like to recognize our other sponsors. Here, of course, West Care of Media. Our colleges, Jefferson Bay. Could you clap? America, Bolero, and Soft. Now, I would like to bring up our board chair, but I think someone stepped out, but that's okay. We'll wait till we come back to that. Oh, it's right there. Oh, so our board chair, Robert Melvin, has been leading stage for several years. He's doing an amazing job. And one of the things that he helped us figure out was how we could get more into the community. So I'd also like my other board members to stand. AJ Better, Sandy Diaz, and Noah, Jeff Martin, and if you could come up to the front. My chairman's going to say a few words, and we do have a presentation.
Morning. I'm sorry, everybody else has to twice. I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you all very much for participating and joining us here today. This is me now to discuss safety and welfare of the Eastside and our community. Thank you to our sponsors for believing in the vision and continue to be a backbone of support for all of the initiatives that Sage continues to pursue and do so successfully. Lastly, I would like to thank my fellow board members for their diligence and their hard work behind the scenes activities that take place to provide the sufficient or adequate support for Tuesday night. They've done an amazing job. We couldn't be prouder. So there's a lot of good things that are to come here in the city of San Antonio, particularly on the east side. We are taking a very aggressive position in how we bring those resources to our community. And that this is just a layer that is necessary for us to understand and appreciate as we begin this monumental growth on the east side. All the wonderful work that's taking place at Austin, West here, via and the need for transportation to be able to get our residents in and to their destination safely. Obviously, Bolero is a mainstay here in the city of San Antonio. To have your investment within our community we're extremely grateful. And obviously, Floss and Jefferson are key elements of any type of program. So again, I want to say thank you. Very much appreciate your time and your ear this morning. Again, to our panelists, thank you for your time and the involvement in the discussion that we will have. But let's enjoy, let's listen. Let's put this to the test.
I love it. So we do have a presentation. What you will see here is it was a creation of the SAGE team. And during the pandemic, which I so love the effects of the apocalypse, one of the things that we found is that we had a lot of people that were in need. People, yes, we could help, but there were other agencies in the system. So we founded the Eastside Education Training Center, the ESSE, that they had a community closet where people who were taking certification classes could go in and get clothes for not only themselves, but for their family. So we created this Eastside Fiesta poster. Thank you for those of you who were in here who purchased one, because those funds allowed us to sell the code posters, and the proceeds are actually going to go to Allen colleges and Etsy. So if you wouldn't mind coming up, please, we have a check presentation for you. So we're just going to present that to Allen colleges and Etsy. Thank you so much for all the work that you do.
I'm not going to ask you to say good morning even once. I'm Jeff Arnson, I'm the president and CEO of Viva, I'm also on the board. And, you know, we talk about projects and everything, but I felt I really needed to share this. And that is that the reason we are all blessed by SAGE is because we have a leader and a staff that have served. And that's the most important thing. And that's why they're out in the community, because they recognize that that's what they need to do. So I didn't want this time to pass without properly acknowledging Tuesday and the staff for the transformation they have made in SAGE. Wonderful, wonderful results we're seeing from them.
Thank you for that. Okay, now I'm blessed and thrown off. But thank you so much for my work. So again, just recognize I'm Robert Melvin, Jeff Arndt, Stephanie Ash, Dr. Tamika Cross, Father Kevin Faust, KJ Fetter, Juan Manta, Joanne Sosa, and Sandy Hughes. Thank you very much. So now, real quickly, let's get into a little bit about faith. I know you didn't hear, you're ready to hear from the panelists. So I'm just going to go real quickly what we've done. So again, this is a picture of 2019. This is the last time we were all together. And some of the people, as you can see, were here last time. But this is what the room looked like. We know we can't go back to that, but we're happy to have all of you here today. Now, going forward, we had to pivot just like the rest of the world. And I hated that word until 2020, but now I understand its value. These are some of the programs that we ran. We changed up our program. We helped with PPP loans. We helped with PPP distribution. We had grant funding. We were helping in the community. We were doing a million things, way too many to talk about, but it's in here. We also have copies up there at the front here in the state. The next thing is we started off the year with a virtual gala here that we filmed, and we had at this location. So it was wonderful. Those who participated, thank you very much. But the hardest thing we've done in a very long time. The next thing is our safe back office program. This is our bread and butter. This is what we really do and what we did to help people. So again, in that 2020 list, this is just what we've done so far in 2021. And so these are the businesses that we help, specifically in the back office, in marketing, finance, any type of support that they need, we help them. These are the businesses that we help. And we also created an outreach hub where people can come in and get information, get grant money, get assistance, come in and use their computers for free. The next thing that we have is our storefront grant. We've also been doing that for several years. We've been doing that for more than 10 years, and we've given out a little over $1 million. And so those are the jobs that are created. We also now receive some funding from TERS. So we're very excited about the tax increment reallocation zone, reinvestment zone, sorry. And those funds, because that's going to allow us to do more funds to store grants. It's going to allow us to help businesses in their property and their safety. The next thing is our last program. So I'm not going to read those to you, but there are some of them that we had to create digitally that we changed because again we had to pivot. We're no longer meeting in person, so we had to see that occur. So we were very excited about that, and of course continuing as a collaborator and a leader on this stuff. So that is all of our work. If you have any questions, I'm happy to talk to you about it later, or please visit our website. But we have a lot more to do. We've done a lot, but there is a lot more to do. My dad used to say always that we have enough hands to do what we're doing, but we don't have enough hands to do what needs to be done. So we're going to continue doing that work. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our panelists. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read bios of all four. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot Halloween. Halloween is our big event that we do every year. It's a celebration, and we're still working on that because we want to be cognizant of what's going on right now with the pandemic. So save the date, we'll have more information there. So the first things first, let's introduce our police department. All right. So, unfortunately, Chief McManus was not able to attend. However, he sent a wonderful work placement. Deputy Karen Fox has been on SAPD's force since 1989, following in her father's enforcement shoes. As a matter of fact, she has a lot of family members that were in law enforcement, so really excited that she went into that field. Deputy Fox has worked in patrol, sex crimes, gang unit, missing persons, an assistant airport commander, and was a captain for community engagement and technology before she was appointed to her current position in August of 2020, in the middle of the apocalypse, working under Chief McManus, who oversees a department of more than 2,400 sworn officers and more than 800 civilian positions. Deputy Fox encourages women to join SAPD and says, you can do anything you want, be anything you want to be. The sky is the limit for women in policing. Thank you. That was great. Next up, we have our Sheriff Salazar, who who was sworn into office in January 17 and recently re-elected. Previously served with SAPD for 23 years in various capacities, with his last assignment as director of the department's integrity unit before joining the Bexar County Sheriff's Office. He has implemented several units and programs during his tenure, including the Adult Detention Mental Health, Contraband Abatement Team, the Applicant Processing Unit, the Public Integrity Unit, Mounted Patrol, Special Victims Unit, the Sheriff's Community Oriented Response and Education, SCORE Unit, Active Shooter Training, Gold Badge Business Certification, Pastors on Patrol, the Senior Fraud Program at Sheriff Citizen Academy. Is there anything else that that's a great list. He holds a bachelor's degree from Greenland University and has a Master of Peace Officer license from the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. He's also a San Antonio native and proud husband and father. Next up, we have Jenny Hickson. Jenny Hickson is with Metro Health. She is the Public Health Administrator for Violence Prevention with San Antonio's Metro Health Department. Jenny oversees the implementation of a public health approach to violence prevention, specifically through ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences, Domestic Violence, Gun Violence Prevention, and Child Abuse Prevention work. Jenny leads the development of the City of San Antonio's comprehensive domestic violence plan, and she previously worked at NICES as the Director of Outreach and Education and has 20 years experience in social service nonprofits and is a graduate of both University of Texas, Austin and Tulane School of Public Health. She also has 2 old babies that are her babies that we discussed earlier. And 2 normal babies, sorry, that was my priority. All right, last but not least, we have our Chief Charles Soda, who's been with SA Fire Department since April of 2007, becoming the first outside fire chief and first African-American fire chief, leading one of the largest fire departments in the nation, commanding over 1,800 uniform and civilian personnel. Under his leadership, SAFD is responsible for over 310,000 unit responses per year. Since becoming chief, he has doubled the size of both the hazmat and technical rescue teams, established new programs such as the Health and Wellness Program, a Fusion Center, a Safety Division, a fitness program, launched a mobile integrated healthcare program, been awarded a Class 1 public protection classification, and accreditation from the Commission of Fire Accreditation International through the Center for Public Safety Excellence. In 2020, SAFD received the CFSI Massimo Excellence in Fire Service-based EMS Board. He also holds a Bachelor of Science in Fire Service Management from the University of Ottawa and is an adjunct faculty at Texas A&M University National Emergency Response and Rescue Training Center. He is an Arizona native and proud father of 4 sons. Now we can So looking at these and planning this, actually the hardest part is looking at their bios and trying to minimize them into bite-sized pieces. These are amazing people in our community doing great work. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, if you have any questions, please raise your hand and write those down in this card. But the first question we have is actually for Jenny Hickson. And so, thank you. Violence Prevention Section Program operates under 4 main pillars: adverse childhood events and trauma-informed care, child and youth violence prevention, domestic violence prevention, and gun violence prevention through Stand Up SA. Can you tell us a little bit more about all of those services that are happening, specifically how they affect even the Eastside?
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. I know several of the people in this room already work with Stand Up and with Derek Taylor very closely. I recognize a lot of you from meetings with them. So the approach that we see to violence prevention and the approach we see to public health is that health is the outcome of all of your cumulative lived experiences, and that health is a property of communities, not individuals. So when we think about the way that we're approaching violence prevention, it's not something that we're doing necessarily one-on-one work, that we do that, but it's also thinking about changing the conditions of community that create violence to begin with. And so I think economic development is a great example of how we know that violence prevention is economic development, is violence prevention, transportation is violence prevention. So the approach that we take as a section is that violence is a predictable outcome of trauma, and that when we try to prevent violence without addressing and healing trauma, we're not taking a long stride with that. So the approach that we're taking as a section is that base of trauma-informed care, thinking about all of the things that people experience over the course of their life that change the way they behave. Addressing those in the now with adults and in their behavior through stand-up, going on and doing that direct interaction, but also working on policies and programs that can change the way that we're approaching these issues as a community so that everyone has access to an equitable approach to all of the resources in our community that can help them live a life that is safe and healthy.
All right, so next question is going to be for Chief Hood. Chief Hood, we've had some emergency issues with COVID and your COVID response. Can you talk a little bit about how the fire department has adapted to the needs of what's happening with this pandemic?
I don't know if you can hear me. It's really good to be in front of a bunch of friends, people I've worked with, 2 council people that are sitting out there with my firefighters' wives. And so I want to start this whole thing letting you know that each and every one of you is going to call 911 in your lifetime. All of your friends, family, loved ones are going to call 911 in their lifetimes. And it's really important for you to understand that this fire department is your fire department. You pay tax dollars. This is your fire department. And we don't say Eastside Fire Department, Northside Fire Department. We got great services throughout the city. And what Tuesday said earlier about these accreditations and stuff, there's only 4 fire departments in North America, that's including Canada, that have the accreditations that we do. So be very proud because only 6% of the nation is served by an accredited department and a Class 1 department. So I'm so proud of my folks and everything that we do. So COVID for us, we were the tip of the spear along with mental health, working with COVID. Throughout the event, we set up a unified command, which unfortunately we started running again yesterday. We were briefing the mayor, the judge every single day, some days twice a day, 7 days a week for about 300 days straight. And so we tested during that time, the fire department was 730,000 people that we tested. We have given over 250,000 vaccines. The fire department, whether it's home vax or the donor, we set up care for different organizations, whether it's CPS, SAWS, the city of San Antonio, they have sick members. We were going to them, giving them concierge service. We work with the sheriff's department on some issues. And so COVID was a big deal for us, and it still is. And so I'm frustrated that people aren't vaccinated. I'm frustrated that all the jubilation that we saw, people being so excited about getting this vaccine as I was witnessing it, that people are still hesitant. So we are ramping back up again with everything that we were doing way back then. So I'm encouraging each and every one of you, if you know someone that's not vaccinated, drag them somewhere to get a needle in their arm, because we need that. It has taken a tremendous amount of stress for our organization, and our runs are going back up. Yesterday we transported 19 COVID patients. We're on 37 COVID responses. That's exposing you to traffic because you got a fire truck or ambulance driving down the street. It's clogging the hospitals. So if you know anybody that is anti-vaxxer, you have to encourage them to get vaccinated. Thank you.
This next question is for Deputy Chief Halls. So with COVID, there were a lot of change, there were a lot of issues. One of the things that was talked about heavily in the news was the homeless situation. Can you tell me a little bit about what's happening to address the homeless population right now?
I can. First, I want to say thank you for having me. I'm sorry that the chief can't be here. Not really. He does send his apologies. He's in service during this week out of town, so he couldn't be here, but I'm very thankful that I got to join all of you in this beautiful venue. And I also echo Chief Hood's comments about vaccinations. Please, if you're not vaccinated, if you know anybody, family members, get them vaccinated. It's so important right now. So please, Chief Hood's advice, get vaccinated. To your point, we are addressing homelessness, not only here on the east side, but
across the city. And we're working with DHS through our safe units across the city. We are increasing our presence around those areas where we're finding encampments, where we're finding where the homeless congregate more frequently. And so through DHS and with our safe units, we're really stepping up what we're doing around those areas to try to get those folks the services that they need. We know that they need services, and so we're trying to either get the services out to them or to actually provide transportation to get them the services that they need. We know it's a big issue, and we're doing all that we can now, partnering with DHS more than we have in the past. We're hoping to get everyone the help that they need. And so that is one of the biggest issues. We have 3 issues that we've identified as top priorities, with homelessness being one, mental health, domestic violence, and homelessness. Those are the 3 big priorities for the police department in the city right now. And so we recognize that, and we're throwing all of our resources that we can at the homelessness issue.
Thank you for that. And that actually leads me to my next question, which is for Jenny. So we're talking about domestic violence, and we know that there was a spike last year in households that were stuck at home and that didn't have the outlets. Can you tell me a little bit more about what those effects are and what is happening at mental health regarding mental health?
Absolutely, and so yes, so what we saw globally, but nationally and also globally, is that when people are under stress, when people have the basic things that they need taken away from them, all the social supports gone, that of course we've seen an increase in violence. We know specifically around domestic violence that the hallmarks of the abusive relationship is isolation, lack of social support, lack of economic mobility. And if you look at the things that COVID brought to our communities, that's exactly the things that it brought to our communities. So locally, what we saw, and she wanted to speak to this a bit more, we did see an increase in the number of calls for domestic violence. When we look at the data, it's mixed, and next Tuesday, actually, we're going to be releasing our first quarterly data report around domestic violence. So I encourage any of y'all that are interested to look at that, because we spent a lot of time doing some data crunching around this. What we did see for sure is that people that are in abusive relationships before the pandemic experienced an increase in the severity of that violence during the pandemic. So things did not get better for people that were in abusive relationships. What we also saw is that people were doing a very complex calculus around how to deal with violence during the pandemic. If they didn't have a job, if they didn't feel like it was safe to go to shelter, if they didn't feel like they could reach out because they were stuck at home, then they had to make very complex decisions. Anyone who's in an abusive relationship is constantly making very complex calculus around how to keep themselves safe. And we want to recognize that survivors are the experts of their experience. But for our community, I think as Chief said, we're never lost a commitment. We are continuing to enhance our commitment to work on domestic violence. Last year, in the middle of the pandemic, there were 20 civilian CRTs that were moved from SAPD into Metro Health. Over the last year, we've been working very closely together, our 2 departments, to understand what that means. We're getting ready to expand the number of advocates that are available. We're getting ready to actually do a whole bunch of training around lethality assessments so that we can identify the people that are most at risk of experiencing a near lethal or lethal event. We're working with the Sheriff's Department on rolling out some things so that the sheriffs can call in and can also do some of that lethality assessment. But what I will say is that anyone that knows anyone, and there's statistically it's impossible, but there's not someone in this room right now who is either personally experiencing this, has experienced it, or who is in the process of supporting someone who is experiencing domestic violence. And if you are that person, or you are helping that person, you can reach out to us and we will talk you through anything that we can. You can always reach out to law enforcement. But this is an issue that takes every single person taking a part in supporting people in domestic violence situations.
Thank you very much. So Sheriff Salvador, this question is for you. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want a sheriff that doesn't take a phone call. So I'm so glad. So Sheriff Salazar, we talk about crime all the time and how it is affecting the Eastside, also the city of San Antonio in general. So can you tell us what our biggest threat to society is right now regarding crime?
Sure, thank you. That was Judge Wolf calling. I always take his calls, especially at budget time. So, look, spoiler alert, I'm gonna bring down the mood in the room just a bit. Because when you talk about the greatest threat to our society, the obvious answer, untreated mental health. More guns on the street, which our deputies are seeing and SAPD seeing more guns on the street. Just anecdotally speaking, we probably went from, if I'm guessing, if I had put numbers, maybe 10% of the cars we stopped on a traffic stop had a gun in them. Now it's probably closer to 30 to 40, maybe even 50% in some cases. So guns are making their way out there. And I would have said those answers before a case that we're currently working on that hasn't really gotten out publicly. And it's once in a while, in my now going on 28, 29-year career, once in a while you get a case that just, what are we doing? And so we're working on those cases right now. We had a case 2 days ago now, about 48 hours ago, that these 3 young kids found a young man that had committed suicide in a drainage culvert. He took and anchored off of into a drainage culvert. So if you can picture this being a drainage culvert, like this is concrete, and there's like a cul-de-sac, and there's a railing up here, right? Everybody's got those. Well, this young man anchored from the top of the railing, and his body was hanging down below, and he was there for a couple of days before he was found. So when our deputies responded, this is a very young man whose family has said yes, he's had some issues, and yes, he was suicidal. I won't go into that in too much detail, but these young kids that found him called him in, and it seemed that they were appropriately shaken up, as any young person would be in finding something like that. And then, so we handled the call appropriately as a suicide and took care of the kiddos as we needed to take care of them. Then we got a call from our friends at the SAPD that said, you may want to check out a video that's circulating on social media. What it was is it was a video of these young ladies taking a necklace off of the deceased young man before they called us and videotaped it. And it made its way to social media. And they're giggling and laughing about taking a necklace from a dead young man that had passed. And then they decided to call us. And I'm just thinking to myself, what have we become as a society? So I would say just a lack of regard for the sanctity of human life is our number one threat. That's what we're seeing. It crosses over into domestic violence, absolutely. It crosses over into human trafficking, and it certainly makes its way into those that are targeting law enforcement. One's on trial right now for murdering a friend of ours in cold blood right in front of police headquarters on a Sunday morning. So a total lack of regard for the sanctity of human life. And the thing is about these young ladies and this young man that did this, that perpetrated this crime, who did go to jail, by the way, last night. We walked warrants and we felt it was necessary to put them in jail, but they're 17. Jail's just the start of the solution. What are we going to do with these young ladies to fix them moving forward? If they're thinking like that now, how are we going to fix them? What are we going to do? Because here's the thing. These little girls didn't look like, the little girl from the Addams Family, like some dark, ghoulish monster, These look like my daughter. They look like the young girl that babysits your kids or grandkids. They look like, at the age of 17, my target demographic for recruitment into the sheriff's office, because we'll hire them at 18, so we start targeting at 17. So we need to do something quick to reach out to these kiddos. And this is not the Dominion, but it wasn't an underprivileged neighborhood. This is a upper middle class neighborhood out near SeaWorld. And again, these little girls look like they could be your daughter, my daughter, our babysitters. So we need to really seriously ask ourselves, what are we doing with these kiddos, and how do we fix it now before these kiddos become our first responders and our doctors of tomorrow? How do we fix it?
What is it that you're suggesting that we do? And I agree with you that there's a generation of kids that are lost. And as a profession, I think we're all concerned. But utilizing the resources that are at the table, how do we get engaged? What's the recommendation from you or the professionals that are around you so that we
you're right, it was a necessary step, because we can't not arrest in a situation like that, obviously, right? And I know that's not what you're saying. But how did we prevent it from having gotten there in the first place? You know, I'm willing to bet that the parents of these young ladies didn't teach them that. I'm willing to bet they weren't raised that way. So I don't know. I'm truly, this is one of those that really threw me. I'm shook, you know, from this case. And I'm literally asking to the fellow stakeholders, what do we do? Because it's all our problem, obviously. You know, I don't believe for a minute that anybody's ever too far gone. Certainly at the age of 17, I would never say, oh my gosh, they're too far gone, let's write them off and be done with it. Throwing them in prison forever is not the solution. What is it then? Because we need to do something, we need to do something now. Because I'm telling you, had I seen those kids at my career fair that we're having tonight, I'd be handing them flyers to come work at the sheriff's office. I'd be giving them the full court press, trying to get them into this uniform. And with that as their mindset, who knew it until it made its way to social media? So I don't know, I don't pretend to know what all the solutions are. I wish I did. But I'm willing to bet if you get enough of us in here really thinking hard on how to reach these kiddos, because clearly with these two, we have not succeeded yet. I'm not saying we failed. We haven't succeeded yet with these two, and I'm just wondering how many others are out there right now. How many of them are babysitting our kids and grandkids at this moment? How many of them are our kids at this moment? I sat down and had a talk. I've got a 19-year-old that thinks she's 35 already, that's here on summer break from Texas State. She can't wait to get back out there. But I sat down and had a talk is, what would you do in this situation? What would you do if you saw your friend doing something in this situation? Obviously, she told me what I needed to hear, what I wanted to hear, but how much of it came from her heart and how much of it did I succeed at? I just don't know yet. I hope so.
And Sheriff, I think Jenny wanted to answer that question as well, and I don't know if you could or if Fox would like to answer. All right, so there we go.
So I think the career that I've had, you can't be that kind of a career unless you are almost pathologically optimistic. And so what I would say about that is that yes, we have, I want us to think carefully when we say there's something wrong with kids today. If we can think about the course of history. Because if we look at it, one, we are a far less violent society than we were 20 years ago. And that's a horrible example, that's a horrible thing that happened. But I think we also all are aware, and to bring the mood all the way down, of how there used to be lynchings that people would take pictures at. This is not something that is aberrant in our society. What is aberrant is finding it wrong. And so I think that if we actually think about what it took to get from there to here, that is the work we need to be doing. And not saying that there's something wrong with our children, because I don't think that's true. I think our kids are actually, if you look at all of the data around this, our kids are kinder, our kids are actually doing a lot of work that we would want them to be doing around violence prevention. The question is, what as we are adults building as systems to respond when we have an operation? So I'm going to disagree with you that the only thing you can do with those kids is arrest them. I think the problem is that's the only tool. Sorry, that's not okay. Okay, but I think that we have to have other tools. When people step out of what we think to be acceptable behavior, we know that these systems that we put people into are traumatic. We know that and then we continue the cycle of adding trauma to trauma to adding trauma, and then we don't get the outcomes that we want, and we wonder why. So I think that's kind of the approach that we take, a trauma-informed approach that starts in childhood, approach that thinks about what are the basic supports that people need in society to get what they need. We have a mental health crisis, absolutely. We have a suicide crisis, but that is a problem of self-violence that comes from systemic violence. And when we look at the economic inequality that we have in our society, it is 100% predictable that that's what we see. So what we do is not necessarily for our kids, it's what we do as a society to make sure they have everything that they need, that they are not homeless.
Chief Hood, or I'm sorry, Deputy Chief.
I'm sorry, can I just, Jenny, I'll leave it to that. I want to be clear that I didn't say that all we can do is arrest them, but how many of you would stand for it if I didn't do something last night? So that was the start of it. They're in the system now, we obviously need to fix it, but yes, I agree with you. Arresting is not the answer. It's not a problem we can arrest away, and it's not all kids. But the fact that it was two average kids off the street that could be babysitting your kids or my kids or working as a first responder in the next year or two, that's concerning.
Deputy Chief Fox?
Just really quickly, I'm gonna say that I agree with both of their thoughts. And not that I can't make my own decision, but this is why I'm gonna say that. The sheriff is spot on and what the biggest threats are, untreated mental health. As deputy chief, I command our fusion center, which houses our mental health unit. And at the same time, his other point was the guns that we're seeing on the street. I also command our covert section, which are all their undercover operations, narcotics, buys, rope, our repeat offender section, those sort of things where we see all of those weapons. But at the same time, when we're talking about what we can do for our kids these days, you were spot on when you talk about social media. What we need to do is we need to figure a way to limit our children to what they see. Because those folks who are putting all of that, and I won't get started, my undergrad is in criminal justice, my master's degree is in leadership, so I'm not gonna dive into how we can censor social media and all those sorts of things. But the fact of the matter is there is so much content that our kids do not need to see on social media. I have a 13-year-old daughter who we have run-ins all the time that I limit her screen time to when she can be on her phone, when she can't be on her phone because of these very reasons. So as parents, we can take that responsibility, but we need to be accountable for our kids and you know, maybe not let them be on their phone 24 hours a day and maybe see some of these things. There's filters, there's mechanisms that you can put in place to see for what your kids can actually see. Maybe we need to step up. You're not going to be the favorite parent. I'm not the favorite parent, but you know what? I'm going to raise you and I'm going to ensure that you're going to be a nice, kind person and you're not going to walk by a dead body and take the necklace off their neck at the end of the day. But as parents, that's our responsibility.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. All right, this question is for Fire Chief. So since the fire department responds to over 81% medical emergencies, that's a lot. I think in 2019, it was something like 200,000+. But what are the enhancements that are being made in areas of emergency medical services?
I've got 4 boys and that's like a great conversation like we were just having. And I get on my knees and pray for my boys every single day. I do, when they were younger, limit their screen times, things like that, try to limit their exposures, and then try to just be a good model for them. And sometimes that's not even enough. But as Tuesday mentioned, about 81% of the calls we go on every single day is a medical emergency. It may be a heart attack, it may be a stroke, it may be a shooting, it may be a behavioral health issue, guarantee a bunch of them are homeless issues. So all of these things that you've been talking about, they play themselves out on the street. And sometimes they play themselves out because you're dealing with a homeless issue and your grandson fell in the pool. It'll take us longer to get there because I'm dealing with a homeless issue, I'm dealing with a domestic issue, things like that. So our departments together are really working hard to try to work on homeless issues and behavioral health issues so we can get there quicker. And so a lot of the things that we're doing, you know, when I got here, we were running out of ambulances every single day. And our hall was on that council that hired me, and Talisi was there shortly after. And now every single day, I've got over 100 fire trucks. 91% of those have a paramedic on board every single day. They have 12 lead, 45 drugs from 9. So bring an intensive care unit to your homes. And so we have 38 investments, 8 peaks. But 2 of the most miraculous things that we've done, I think we were piloting it when we met in 19 at the AT&T, we're delivering whole blood. So if you get shot, if you get stabbed, if you get in a automobile accident and you're pinned, we're transporting blood to the scene and giving you old-tired blood. As a paramedic, when I was in the field, we started normal saline like they were ringers. By the time we get to the hospital, whether it's a helicopter or an ambulance, your blood is pink, it's water, it's not perfusing oxygen. You're We've had so many miraculous things because we, on any type of shooting, stabbing, any call type, we're transporting whole blood. We work with a blood and tissue center, so we replace that blood every 48 hours and it goes to surgery for somebody. So that's amazing. That's amazing. And the greatest enhancement I've seen in over 30 years, we just started pilot. And so if you call 911 today, if you have a smartphone, and we have a lot of people we call high volume utilizers. They call us 10, 12 times a month. We transport them 24 times in a year. Again, that is tying us up from getting to you if you need us. So if you call right now, I'm a 21-year-old male, I've been having flu symptoms for the last couple of days, I need someone to come check me out. Sir, if you have a smartphone, we'll send you a link. We send you a link. This link goes to a dispatcher, a clinical dispatcher, a paramedic that's able to put your head in the screen. It's going to give us your pulse rate, your temperature, your respiratory rate, and we can see everything there. And so we can do telemedicine for you. We can send you a virtual taxi cab. But then we're using it in other events, and this is not public, and the families have allowed us to use this video. We had a cardiac arrest recently. The lady called, said, my dad, he's not breathing right. Well, put your phone on your dad. Put the phone on, he's in cardiac arrest, he's breathing like atrial respiration, which is not enough to fuse your brain. So we gave her health information for CPR. Another lady called up, I need you to check my mom. She's not feeling well. Put her on, can she smile? No, she's a basic. Can she lift up her hands? No, she's having a stroke. So we got resources going, but in the meantime, we've already called a hospital that has a stroke protocol that we can get you there really quick. And on these behavioral issues, if they call or work with PD, if they call us, okay, there's a box of hand grenades in the back of this, I can see it on the frame right there. So we're basically putting a paramedic in your living room in 15 seconds. Nobody else in the country is doing it. We got this technology from England, and they changed their business model because of the success that we've had. We were able to add about $2.5 million in our budget, and a lot of that money is going to add dispatchers. We're adding 8 clinical dispatchers so we can do more with this program, and it's saving us 19 units a day. So it's 19 times a fire truck or an ambulance doesn't have to go out on a run, and we can save it for other things. So we're really excited about that. So thanks for the question.
Thank you, Fire Chief. And with that, we are actually at the 5-minute mark. I know you have a hard stop, Fire Chief. And so if you'd like to give your last remarks, and if you guys are okay with it, we do have a couple more questions for the rest of the panel if they're willing to stay. So, Fire Chief.
My 20-year-old son, Langston, goes to college in Booster. And there's a board member that lives in San Antonio that was on the board of directors at College of Booster. So I got a breakfast lunch deal with him at 11:30. So kids are always more important than anything we do. So I gotta go pick up my kid and go to have breakfast with a former board member. But if there's anything that the fire department can do for you, please let us know. I'm really easy to get a hold of. We are vested in this community. We spend time reading to kids. We spend time going to the schools where we can get in. And so again, this is your department. It's all about preventing things from happening. That way we can stay off the streets and keep ourselves safe and take care of you. So it's been an honor. I look forward to being here next year. And I'm sorry that I would run asking these folks some hard questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. So now I'm going to go to questions from the audience. This is actually one that we go to our police department and or our sheriff's department.
Small ammunition. Thank you so much.
All right, this one is for the police department and or the county sheriff's office. With the civil unrest after multiple deaths in as a result of police interactions, primarily Black and brown people. What is SAPD or the Sheriff's Office doing to change the narrative of how you interact with people of color?
So one of the things the primary thing, because we're in the middle of a recruiting push, huge recruiting push, they are too. We're trying to be reflective of the community we serve. We need to look like you. We need to act like you. We need to come from the same area and have the same values as you, right? That's what we were talking about earlier. And so we try very, very hard. Now we're doing well at the Sheriff's Office. Our demographics in the Sheriff's Office pretty well match those of the community. The one exception is with regard to male-female. Our mix is actually about 20% female. We're trying to get that boosted. So the good thing is, in most of the country, right now, the hard thing for most agencies to do, and it's IACP, International Association of Chiefs of Police, the Sheriff's Association, all write white papers on this, that they're having a hard time recruiting minorities into their ranks. We don't have that problem here. We don't. I know y'all probably don't. So we're doing well with respect to that. The other thing is teaching empathy, teaching ethics. One of the things that we do at our academy is we teach a program called EPIC. Ethical Policing is Courageous. Everybody knows the issues that my agency had in 2017, 2018, and we are in the process of turning it around. It's a work in progress. Due to EPIC, basically teaching our deputies to do the right thing, to intervene. You don't want to go to internal affairs for somebody else? Fine, intervene before they get you in internal affairs. Tell them to cut out what they're doing. Tell them to get their knee off the suspect and let's just get him in the car and take him to jail. Tell him to go sit in the car while you handle this disturbance because clearly he's having a bad day. Keep us all out of trouble by doing the right thing. And so those are just two of the things. I can do this all day, but I do want Chief Fox to weigh in on it as well.
So the sheriff is spot on. You want a law enforcement agency that reflects the community. He's very accurate about that. San Antonio Police Department tries very hard to recruit women, to recruit minorities. The national average for women in police agencies is just under 15%. So the sheriff's office is above that. The police department, we have just over 12% women. So we're always looking to hire women. Minorities, we're doing a much better job than we have in the past. I didn't bring the breakdown, but I certainly can provide it for anybody that would like that number. But to build trust and to foster those relationships with the community, we need to look like the community. Our San Antonio demographics, 50% women, 50% men. So when it comes to women, and I'm a big advocate, as you can probably understand why, I'm always out. We started a women in policing recruiting event back when I was a lieutenant at the academy, and we continue to do that now. So that's a big push as our minorities. You know, we get out to historically Black colleges around the country. Our recruiters do that once a year, and to military bases when folks are leaving the military. That's called, there's that word for that. I wasn't in the military. I apologize. So we try to yes, okay. What is that? It is okay. Okay. So we try to do as much minority recruiting as we can, and we're trying to get there. But also too, when we saw this and I'll say that the murder of George Floyd, we made quite a few changes, policy changes, the way we conducted business. As the sheriff said, we added a duty to intervene policy that we never had before. Just as the sheriff spoke, if you see an officer doing something that you know is illegal, is immoral, you have a duty to intervene. And if you don't, guess what? That's your job that's on the line. So now that's a policy we have in place. We took away a lot of, there's no knock warrants. The CPD doesn't do that anymore. We changed the way that we have done business in so many different ways, and it was necessary. Some of our folks pushed back because they were so used to it. But once we got out and we made roll calls and we talked about, times have changed. We need to do business better, and we need to connect with our community. And so now a big push for our department is community engagement. And so before I leave, I have a number. We've set up community engagement is a huge part priority for Chief McManus right now, and so you'll see, we have a text number that you'll be able to text into, and I left it in my, and I'll give it to you before I leave. But now you can text a number, and you'll be able to when you opt in to this text messaging system we have, you'll get messages from the police department, crime stats, videos from Chief McManus, all sorts of things that we'll be pushing out from the police department when you opt into this number. And so, so as you can see, community engagement now is like the #1 priority for us.
Thank you very much. So we are now on our last question, and this really, all three of you can answer, so Jenny, I'm gonna start with you. And so we're on our last question, and we'd like to hear your last remarks, and then we have a small presentation for you at the end. So real quickly, gun violence has been on the rise. We know that there's been some constitutional carry regulations that have come out, and some things that are happening that might impact the community. So can you end your comments on gun violence and the importance of having some type of policy or whatever you would like to talk about with gun violence, and then your last remarks, please.
Yeah, that's the non-controversial questions. So I think as the sheriff said, during the time period of COVID, we saw the most number of guns purchased since the time that kind of record keeping has been made. So there are guns everywhere in everyone's home. And the challenge with that, and I know that some of the folks in this room work on this, that we're thinking about is safe storage. Because we know that there are just guns everywhere in our community all the time. And that people might lock up 9 of their 10 guns, but the 10 when they keep in their bedside table for safety is the one that their kiddo takes out and kills themselves with, accidentally shoots someone, that they get into an argument with their spouse and they, in a moment of impulse, shoot their spouse. And so that safe storage is incredibly important in both making sure that people know how to store their weapons safely and that we're providing them with the tools to do that. And the sheriff's office does that, SAPD does that, University Health does that. And so that's something that I know we want to partner with the community around. We're not going to, at this point in our culture, get rid of the guns in our society, so we have to make sure we can do all the things we can to make them as safe as possible so people aren't getting hurt unnecessarily. And I think my closing remarks, what I'd like to say is that I spent my career as an activist outside of government, yelling at the government. I've actually delivered petitions to both the sheriff and the police prior to this position. But being on the inside, what I have to tell you is that I have seen the most sincere commitment to making positive change from both the sheriff's office and SAPD that I would not have believed were I not in the room listening to those conversations. Chief Sanford over with the sheriff's office has been just a phenomenal partner for us around domestic violence and doing a lot of really sincere work around that. As has the chief at SAPD and all the folks there that have been willing to really go a long way into thinking about creative ways to address public safety in our community. So I think as someone who's born and raised in San Antonio, and who spent a lot of my life from the activist perspective, I think we all should be really proud of the law enforcement that we have in our community that has worked really hard to be genuine in their partnership around addressing some of these issues. So thank you very much.
So I've got a little spin on the gun concerns as well. And let me just say, I'll go on record as saying I'm not a fan of more guns out there in the hands of unlicensed, untrained, unscreened people that may be flying under the radar for something else. So with that being said, my #1 concern when it comes to constitutional carry is the fact that a lot of people are gonna initially go, wow, it's cool, I get to carry a gun now. And then they're gonna realize, like those of us that carry a gun for a living, it's a pain in the butt, literally a pain in the butt to carry a gun everywhere you go. And they're gonna leave it under the seat of their car. And so just the way that I know that I'm stopping on traffic stops, I'm stopping more cars with guns in them. Well, guess what? The car burglars know that if they break into 10 cars, 2 or 3 are gonna have a gun under the seat. So all we're doing is putting more guns out there in the hands of criminals. Even the best intentioned gun owner that says, man, I can't carry it into this restaurant, I'm gonna be respectful of their rules, so I'm gonna leave it under the seat. Bam, next thing you know, it's stolen and it's being used in a drive-by, or it's being used to kill a child or an officer or one of you all. And so that is absolutely a genuine concern. So look, in my closing remarks, I just want to reiterate that this issue of just a total lack of regard for the sanctity of human life is something that has made its way into our communities, into our law enforcement agencies, unfortunately, into our armed forces. It's there, it's real. And so while yes, absolutely, not all kids are like this. There's 99% of our kiddos are out there doing what they need to do and becoming the leaders of tomorrow. But that loss of respect for the sanctity of human life is a big deal, and we all need to be paying attention to it. Not that we aren't already, but we just need to absolutely pay attention to it and work together. And that's why there are people in this room, those of you that have my personal cell, I will take a call if you call me in the middle of a speaking engagement, because it's important, and because I know that if you have my personal cell, it's because I know that we are moving in the same direction, that we are trying to fix things. We are trying to better the way Chief Fox and I lead our organizations moving forward. So I'm blessed to have partners like the SAPD. I'm blessed to have partners like Metro Health and some of the things that we're going to be unveiling that we're working on together. I'm blessed to have each and every one of you guys here listening to what we're saying and trying to help us truly be part of the solution. So I don't know what the solutions are at this point, but I'm hoping that if we all put our heads together, we can figure it out. Thank you.
Well, it certainly seems like the sheriff and I agree on so many issues, and it's probably because he was from Recipe. When it comes to guns and gun violence, he's spot on. As a law enforcement officer, I don't want to see more guns on the street. There's too many now. And he's right. It is a pain. I don't always carry a gun with me because it's a pain. Depending on where you're going to go, it's truly, and really for women, I think it might be even harder to take a gun somewhere as a law enforcement officer. But, and you do forget, sometimes you have it. And I never realized that more than when I was at the airport for a year. And there would be more people who forgot they had weapons in their backpacks, in their little overnight tote bags. And when they came through the checkpoint, and they got a big surprise. And TSA, all the checkpoints shut down, red alerts, lights are going off, and it may have been a law enforcement officer from somewhere, it may have been a guy who came from his ranch and had a gun. It's a pain, but I guarantee you, come September 1st, we're going to see a lot more, and we don't want to see that because we're getting a lot more guns off the streets, and for law enforcement, that's scary. And for all of you, that should be scary. And so I'm going to close with this. I saw a slide up here. It went by really fast, but it said, it takes a village. I don't know if y'all saw that. We are the village. SAPD, Bexar County SO, our federal partners, our state partners, Metro Health, every city agency, all of you, all of your companies, we're the village. And we have to work together, we have to collaborate, to get to where we need to be, to have a safe community, to have a fun community. My daughter's 13, I want her to grow up and not have to worry about, can I walk down the street safely, or, can I go hang out with my friends on the weekend? And I'm sure all of you want the same thing too. So it's going to take all of us working together to collaborate to make sure that all of our kids, our grandkids, can have the same thing. So thank you for allowing me to come to Chief McManus's place. I don't know if he's ever been here, but I'm going to snap some pictures and tell him what he missed. But I appreciate it. Thank you for having us.
Okay, I know we went a little over, and my apologies, but I could not stop this conversation. It's much needed, and obviously there's more that needs to be said. So I do encourage you to reach out to anybody on this panel. If you don't have time to reach out to them, reach out to Sage, and we're happy to connect you. But we do have a small presentation, and I know they all have some other things that they want to make sure they talk about. So let me let you get that.
So real quick, let me give you that number. So if you will text SAPD to the phone number 39987. That's not really a phone number, but text SAPD to 39987. You will begin getting news, crime statistics, upcoming events, messages from Chief McManus, videos from Chief McManus, almost immediately. I think we're probably going to push 10 to 12. You're not going to be inundated. probably 10
I already got one.
Okay. And so, and then tell your friends about it. I think Tuesday next week, we're gonna do a public announcement about this community engagement piece. So you got it first.
Okay, and so not only did you say it's on Tuesday, but also mentioned our It Takes a Village. So that is a program that we did create. We have several people who actually filmed that for us. Jeff Lawrence is in the audience, and a few other people, Dr. Lawson did as well. So with that, again, I don't know if they have any more, but we just want to say a huge thank you to our panelists and to thank them for all their hard work, because it's not easy. And we do realize that mental health is also an issue for you guys as well. So we appreciate your hard work. We appreciate your hearts. We appreciate you helping our community better. So with that, as a thank you from Sage, we have a framed poster that we would like to give to all of our panelists, which is just a framed picture of the Eastside and stay Eastside strong. So I encourage all of you to stay Eastside strong as well. But again, we'd like to say thank you to our sponsors, West Care via Jefferson Bank, San Antonio Housing Authority, Alamo Colleges, Cross Bank, Valero, Comerica, and all of you that are here with us today. So we encourage you to stay safe,